I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
In the spirit of 911 Lone Star, hey y'all!
Hey!
We're super excited this week. There's so much to talk about. We are talking episode 5, Lone Star. We are talking studs. They have named this studs. And are there so many studs this episode? Oh my God. So, let's jump into it. We welcome you back. Thank you for tuning in. We want y'all to comment. The live chat is up. Please go on. We have a very, very special guest that I can't wait to introduce, and you want to be involved with this episode. At first, I'm going to definitely welcome back Porchia Carter this week.
What's up, y'all?
Hey, as you know, she's an original 911 panelist, so we always have that aspect of the originality to our series. And our special... Yes, I said it.
Right. Pun intended.
Yes, I said it. She's going to keep it 100 with us, and she's going to keep it real.
Doesn't she always? Doesn't she always?
And then, of course, we have our special guest. He plays Paul, but his name is Brian Michael Smith. Mm-hmm. He is here live with us in studio. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're super excited to have you, and this episode really highlighted a lot about your character, so we're going to jump into that. Can't wait. And then we have Ebone.
Hello.
Chatman.
Yes. Yes. The halo of beauty.
Yes.
You know,
She's our queen tonight.
Yes.
She is our queen. Ebone keeps it sweet. She keeps it honest.
Yes.
And she keeps us on the subtle side.
Right. Gotta bring them down.
Gotta keep it cute over here.
Portia be over here out wild. I gotta bring it all the way back around.
I do not be acting up. Y'all ain't gonna do me like that.
We're just saying.
Now we just saying, okay.
Let's get into it. It's all in love, you guys. It's all in love. You can't have a great panel without having, like, you know, checks and balances. You have to have a little bit of everything. So we all bring that to
I'll
the
be
table.
the check. Y'all be the balance.
Yeah.
Now she wants to lie.
Right. Exactly.
I was trying to balance it out, and she went back to the check.
Look, she is owning her brand right now. I support it. I support it.
I
Yes.
was like, no, okay.
Oh
go ahead.
my God. Well, we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. So much happened this episode. We opened up at a strip club with studs.
Yeah.
Amazing. A tiara got stuck in someone's lip, braces, mouth, something.
Straight through the cheek.
Straight through the cheek. Oh my God. And you pulled
And it was
off.
sold on Baby Girl here.
Yes, it was.
Can we pause and talk about that for a minute?
Right.
Why do you need to sew down a tiara to your head for one night? That's what clips are for.
I get it.
You want to
But
secure
then-
the tiara, girl. Secure it. Like, we need to secure them wigs. You got to secure the tiara. That's how it goes. You got to do it. She was there for her bachelorette party. I'm just saying.
It's not outrageous because I know of people who would do that, you know? Like, just so that when you go out that night, everybody
fall
know
off.
that this is your night.
Right, and she already knew
It
she
ain't
was going to
coming
turn up, you know, so she
Right.
had to lock it down. She don't want to leave it. It was diamonds. I assume she just wanted to be real secure
light the
in her
rip off.
choices. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with being secure in your choices.
Right.
But it turned out to her detriment at this
Wah-wah.
point.
Yeah. They cut her hair. That wasn't worth it. No. It was
Nobody knew they was about to get into a fight. It just went haywire out of nowhere.
Those are facts.
It was really crazy. It was all of a sudden now we're in a fight. I was like, oh my gosh, punching the girl? What happened?
On
People wanted to
stage,
see
I
the
thought it was TK and them. Because they was
Me
firefighters.
too. I thought it was too. And I was like, is this the crew out here dipping it and doing
You know,
it
we
and
moonlight,
jerking? I
you
was
know,
like,
maybe we moonlight.
okay.
You know,
Right.
you got to make
Not
extra coin
moonlight.
up in here. You got to do what you got to do.
You know, since we have, you know, Paul himself sitting here, how about we just ask him how was it to shoot that scene since we're talking about it? They're, you know, moonlighting and dipping in.
No,
and cutting.
it was literally as wild as it looked. Like, we walked in there, they had the smoke was going on. We had the dancers up there, and it was something. And listen, when you see 8-packs, 6-packs, and whatnot, like, you can't help how you feel. So the women there they were not acting. You know, there was a lot of their own energy was just.
I know, I
up in
wasn't acting
there,
when
yeah.
I was watching it. I was
Yeah.
like,
I'm just saying.
Where did y'all shoot it? What city?
We shot it in Los Angeles.
Y'all shot it in LA.
Yeah, we shot it
That's
in
all
LA.
And there
the
were
hottest
women in there
ones.
seeing 6 and 8 packs. And y'all know dating in LA is trash, so I can agree.
Okay.
They was probably in there hot and bothered.
And, and getting paid to be there. I mean, it was a great day for everybody. You know,
right.
I can't be mad at
Let
them.
me be an
Make
extra.
that money, don't
Okay.
let it Thank you.
Can't be mad at
Yes, they was
That's
dressed
all
up.
they had to look at all day.
They was feeling cute. They was watching the dudes dance. They was having a great time. So it was a lot of energy to go into.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well,
Wow.
that's how we opened up the new episode this week, and that was hot and steamy. But, you know, some interesting things came out with TK and Owen this week. TK has finally found out that his father has lung cancer, and, you know, we found that out towards the end of last episode, but now we're seeing him really support his dad. What were your thoughts on that? Porchia, we'll start with you, and then we'll work our way around.
I like it. I like that his son is there for him during this time, that he has somebody other than Wayne who is like a companion while he's taking his treatments, you know, going through the motions, somebody he's able to explain all of the things that are changing in his body with, and who is actually as close to him as his son. So it's a beautiful thing to have your, you know, close relative there for you in times of need. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was great to see the shift in the dynamic, how they take care of each other, because you saw how Owen took care of TK, you know, from the first episode, and kind of taking him out to Austin and helping him recover from his OD and stand on top of him. So it was really nice to see, you know, TK want to step up into that role and support his dad, and you see that it's a balanced relationship. So I thought it was really cute to see that other side of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, you know, to see a father-son relationship, there's nothing closer than a bond, like just like a mother-daughter. Like you know, it's someone that can relate to you and how what you're going through. And then like the topic kind of got a little crazy while they were sitting there with Portia's favorite character, Wayne, right? So Wayne brings up a whole topic, and it gets a little crazy. So it's nice that they're all men in there talking about, you know, what's going on and the changes that are happening with Owen and his body with the chemo.
I told y'all Wayne was negative. He is so negative because he be out here pushing on his fears onto other people. Now, I feel like Owen kind of low-key received it because he was scared. You know, like when you receive bad news out of fear, sometimes it just happens. So I feel like he projecting all of his things that he got going on onto Owen. He's no good for him. It's not a good relationship.
She wants him to cut it off.
It's not a
I like Wayne.
It's not a mentorship. It's more like a negative Nancy. Like every time he come, it's like you got something bad to say.
I think he's just real. He's been there. He's done it. He's got the T-shirt, and he's just trying to be candid and tell him, like, look, this is the real deal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. These are the things that you need to do. And he's doing it in that Southern hospitality type of, like, nosy neighbor type of way.
Or like a friend, like a neighbor, like a
He's a little aggressive on the friend side. Because he just met them.
No.
But he does mean it in a
it?
caring way.
Yeah.
No?
Portia's over it.
Yeah, she over it. I do think he is that realist, though, and I feel like he might necessarily be, he might not necessarily like just be putting his fears on a projecting his fears. I think he's reflecting Owen's fears kind of back to him. And Owen he won't say it out loud. Like he won't tell anybody how he's really feeling. So it's kind of good to have Wayne in there to just say out loud what is probably going through his mind and say like, you're not the only one thinking these things. So let me just put it out there because you probably trying to act like you ain't thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah, I think I just need a balance of somebody that's there to give him hope, and I think we have that in TK. So here we are.
We have it in Michelle too. Michelle gives
She
him
don't
hope.
know nothing though.
She knows
She don't know.
enough.
She don't know what's going on.
She don't know the deal. Well, I feel
knows
like
enough.
Judd is kind of doing that a little bit because he knows.
Okay,
Judd knows a
true.
little more.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we also see this relationship with Owen and TK displayed during their first 911 call that was really big after the tornado and saving the kids and different things of that nature. And it kind of just rolls over to really watching them develop and have an open relationship. In this episode, that closed offness is kind of gone, and now there's more of an open line of communication. Do y'all feel that way, given the fact that there were a lot of secrets, and now in this episode, to me, at least the way I take it, there seems to be more of an open conversation.
Yeah, I think it's more open, especially on the part where Owen was about to run into that building. And remember, on previous episodes, when TK didn't know what his daddy was going through, whenever he went full force into danger, he like, you know what, I'm proving myself, I got to do this. But now he has his son who is well aware of his disability basically, and knows that no, you can't do that. So when he tells him to stop, he listens to him this time and not doesn't have something to prove. You know?
Very true.
And pulls back. I love that because I think we said last week too, like Owen is always just trying to do too much. Like, dang, you got lung cancer. You're trying to go into the burning house. You're trying to do too much. Like, sit down. So I'm happy to see that TK can kind of like reel him in. Like, don't go over there. We got this.
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty of able-bodied people on the team. Like, you do not need to.
The squad is full, you know. Lean in, Cap. But what I think is cool about this episode is that it's called Studs, and I think it's focusing on like masculinity in different ways.
Yeah.
And opening up those channels of communication is showing what old masculine tropes and behaviors aren't really serving us, and what happens when you do the opposite. So like he had to get vulnerable, he had to be open with TK, and in doing so he found this ally that he didn't necessarily have with Wayne, and the support that he didn't necessarily have. And then he found like, you know, he could step back and still feel supported. So, you know, having his son there say, hey Dad, chill, we got you, and feel like, all right, I can step back and you still see me as the man that, you know, that I need to be. I thought that was peppered through every kind of storyline in this episode in a pretty cool way.
I can see that.
That was a great point that you brought up.
That's
Definitely. I mean, there was a lot of, you know, love. I said like love and sex, right? But really, it is kind of like masculinity. Where can I pull back? How do I still show up? Just like with Judd and his wife. In that same way, it's like, how can I come to you, be vulnerable, be open, but still see you, and her still see him, and that whole back and forth.
Yeah, not feeling like you have to give up your manhood to be open, or give up your manhood to be vulnerable, and just like evolving. I feel like every guy in this episode sort of evolved in their masculinity in some way.
Yeah, because that actually adds to your masculinity, in my opinion. That you can be open, that you can listen, that you are there for your wife, you're there for other people. I think that makes you way more masculine than someone that's just like macho and like
absolutely,
and free. I feel like everybody kind of freed up in some way.
Freedom is good.
That I can definitely agree with. And I love the word vulnerability because I can see that as another through line that happened all the way throughout this episode.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I think as a whole, as the team, everyone's been really, really like sheltered and covered and trying to take care of their own issues and problem internally instead of actually leaning on each other. And we're starting to see the team lean on each other a little bit more like organically. And that's something that this episode highlights subtly.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Awesome. Well, we're going to move on and go ahead and talk about Grace and Judd because you already started to talk about them a little bit. They had a lot going on this episode. And it's funny because off camera we were talking about how it seems like their dynamic as a couple is always, their issues are always bigger than what they actually are. And to watch this couple really try to break down real life and real issues and deal with like certain situations that are very, very small and can be nipped in the butt. And because of life happening and getting in the way and working a job that is around, 24/7 on hours and trying to deal with death and emotions, now something as simple as having intimate time with your significant other is now playing a huge role in spiraling out of control. So what were your thoughts, Porchia? We'll start with you.
That's tough because I'm not married, so I can't really say, how I feel about this situation. I can say that I never want to ever be in a predicament with my significant other where we're not intimate. So it's like, I feel, Grace on her end being upset because she I got needs too. And I think that's like on the opposite end of the spectrum where most of the show displayed masculinity. Now we have a woman saying that, I have sexual needs, and that's something that is always displayed in men. So now that we have a woman saying it, and it's the man who is actually not, I guess coming up to the plate about that, then we kind of see, even playing fields, if I'm saying that correctly. Like it's kind of like evened out because a lot of times when we hear marriages not working out, it's because the husband cheated or, something like that, of that nature. Or maybe even the woman don't want to have sex anymore. But now it's his PTSD from what happened to him that has him, on the down and down. Because you can't say up and up.
Right.
But he on the down and down.
The down and down.
Yeah, and so I honestly, okay, I got stuff flying in my face. I'm sorry. Y'all didn't see that. But I honestly, okay, I don't know how that would have, worked out, or I can't necessarily put myself in her shoes to see how, or to have input on how that would work out. I can say that I'm over it. Like, I'm over their relationship, always starting out with this huge, gigantic problem, and then halfway towards the end, 45 minutes into the show, it's all over. They all peachy good, clean, like ain't nothing happened. It's like real cheesy to me. So I not that they could have drugged this out, because granted, he probably still ain't even ready to do it. But
He's still in the
we could have very well seen at least 2 episodes of a real married couple working out something of this nature.
Do you see what I'm talking about now? Do you see what I'm talking about?
I get what you're saying.
She doesn't like that they nip it in the butt.
Yeah.
She wants it to be a little more.
I just need an explanation of how this worked. Y'all, so their conversations didn't give me insight to how I would be able to solve this problem if I was in this situation in my marriage.
Oh, really?
It didn't. No. It didn't help me.
Give us some insight.
I feel like I'm married, so I can see where these issues come up. Especially when you're in a relationship with somebody for like a long period of time, and then like your life starts to take over the just things in your life, like the PTSD and like that incident taking over some elements of his life. Maybe when she was getting into her job, that might have like took her out of the marriage a little bit and had her focus on things. These things sort of like happen. So what I did feel like the episode model was like, how do you have that honest conversation? Because she could have just kept it quiet and just, when he wasn't feeling the dinner, just went and like quietly watched this, like, no, I'm cool. But she kind of stood her ground and she said, I'm not mad.
She had an attitude.
Yeah, she did. But in a well-earned attitude. She said, he kept trying to say, you're mad, what you mad? She's like, I'm not mad. I'm frustrated and I'm sad. And she clearly expressed what was going on with her and like let him deal with that. So she said, it's not that I don't like you or I have anything against you, but this behavior right now is affecting me in this way and you need to do something about that. And she put the ball in his court. And I don't feel like you see a lot of that, or like, especially like nowadays, we, everybody's want to text and nobody wants to say anything. There's a lot of passive aggressiveness, but she's like, I'm not about to be passive aggressive with you. I'm gonna tell you exactly what's going on.
That's me.
You're like, oh, I'm fine. You in the kitchen? I'm fine. It's fine. I'm fine. No, it's good. No, but she didn't do that. So I felt like it did do a good job of modeling that. But I think you're right. Because it's like a 45-minute show and there's more characters on this one, I think sometimes they kind of speed.
Yeah, they speed it up so fast that it turns into like cheese, and it's just like I
turn the cheese.
No, I'm for real. Like, it's real cheesy, but I really want like a in-depth, like, I hate to do this, but I have to. I hate to do this, but I have to do it.
Do it.
When we watch the original 911, we see, like, let me just bring up Bobby and Athena. When they have issues, they thoroughly, in-depth work it out hand and foot. And like, you see the process of how to overcome a situation had you put yourself in their shoes, I don't get that with Judd and Grace. It's like, I see the problem, I see the issue, I'm glad y'all brought it up. Now the world knows that there are real issues that happen like this in marriage, and granted, it's not y'all's job to teach us how to walk it out, but if y'all gonna be peachy clean and everything all good and fine and dandy, at least show us how you got there the real way,
Yeah.
I think that I can see that, but I think the reason why we don't get a chance to see that is because
they ain't got no time.
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, that's the honest to God truth. I mean, there's a lot of days. There's a lot
going on.
I get it.
For me, I like Judd and Grace. I think that their relationship, for me, I think it's very cute. I love the fact that like Judd ends up always coming back around every time. So Grace will express herself and then he hears her and then he always, like, at first he's resistant, but he always comes through. So for me, I'm like, yes, like,
he's a
goals.
teddy bear.
Like, you want someone who listens to you, that hears you, and that's gonna follow through with something that, was said. So I like it. That's my take on it. I like it. I'm the gushy, romantic, clearly.
And I split the difference because I like their relationship very much. I think Sierra is like fantastic. Every time, I watch the heartbreak happen, and then I watch the strength in her, and like, there's like nothing false about what she does, and I enjoy that. But I do wish, like, man, I want them to take some more time because they're giving you this meal, these like feelings. They're just these wells of emotion and whatnot. So let's eat it, let's eat the whole meal, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Facts.
yeah.
And the dessert.
I like peach cobbler.
Right. First one, a 3-course meal.
Right.
Okay.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Hey.
Give her tiramisu.
So, and throw some fries on the side.
Oh my God. Oh my God. But overall, I think the real issue with it is that there's just not enough time in the episode. If we had it where I feel like with the original 911, everyone has their own episode, basically. Like when Bobby and Athena are going through something, it's basically their episode. There aren't too many other stories being told in that moment. No, with the wedding, when they had that, it was centered on the wedding.
It wasn't.
Hold on.
That-
Hold on.
They about to be fighting up here, y'all.
Hold on. What I'm saying is that that's the center of that episode. It's not like okay, TK and Owen is going through this, and that's a huge chunk of the show. And then
we get a little sprinkle of everyone's storyline in this show, where it's like, okay, like this happened, and that's why I feel like when we were talking last week, we were like, we're still hungry, like we're still waiting for like something to like catch us with the episodes, because there's so many things going on, and you only get like a 2-minute or like
Correct.
a 5-minute
It's split.
per person. So it's like with Michelle and her sister, it's like that took up a lot of episodes, but it was still so inconclusive. So it was kind of like...
Because we're only getting a little slice of the pie. We're not getting more of the center of the show. And maybe I'm not describing it correctly. But at the end of the day, I feel like with the original 911, we get more of that pie for that story in that moment. When we're dealing with the mom, the grandma that came to town to see Bobby and Athena and see them living and all of that, that was like almost half of the episode. It kept cutting back and two from it. So that's what I think that this show is missing, as to why we don't feel like we're really getting the full resolutions that we want. And I mean, if you like it quick and dirty, then it's working. If you want more like Porchia, then we just have to, stay tuned for a couple more
We're
episodes.
going to need 90-minute episodes if we get our season 2, right? Because it's a lot of good
put
stuff
it out there.
Sure.
Put it out there. We need 90-minute episodes, y'all.
Can we get 90 minutes?
Right.
But while we're talking about time, we're going to go ahead and roll into our third character topic of the day, which is Paul himself, who is sitting here. Yes. So we're talking about all the crazy moments that happened with this episode with Paul. Paul, Brian, Paul.
Right. What are we calling him tonight? What's his name?
Right. It's because we just watching. You're sitting right in front of me, so I'm still in La La Land with the episode. But Brian, your episode was just crazy, and you had to deal with real life situations, dealing with real conversations, and how do we approach them, and how do we accept them. And it was beautiful to see this drawn out on television and being able to have an open conversation about it. So overall, we watch you save this woman with glitter in the face, with the strip club scene that we originally talked about at the top of this episode, which is crazy in itself, because how did that happen? Like, what?
She got shot in the face with a glitter gun. I mean, the things go down at the bachelor party.
I didn't know it was that much glitter involved.
Right. It was a lot going on.
So we witnessed that, and then this beautiful moment happens where y'all have an intimate moment. She likes you, you like her.
She bring me some brisket.
Right.
Can't win.
Yeah. A full basket.
Okay.
That's a keeper right there.
With the sauce on the side.
Right.
That's a keeper. I mean, how was it with this episode, just going through this whole, were you able to identify?
Yeah. No, it was something that, when I got the script, like, the writers has sort of been asking me questions as we were shooting some of the other episodes, just like, so let's talk about dating and this. And I was kind of like, I was like, why y'all asking? And then, it was like, Valentine's Day. It's like, oh, what? So I was kind of excited because I haven't got a chance to do any romantic storylines in any of the projects that I've kind of worked on. I've kind of, either been heroic or, kind of helping other people out in a supportive role. But to actually do my own little mini romantic comedy was like very exciting. Yeah. And it was also exciting, just for me personally, but then also it's like, oh, what it can mean for other people to see like a trans relationship kind of like unfold, like a trans romance. And then, the kind of beauty in that, and then what reality, brings to that situation. And there's a lot of misconceptions about what that could mean or what that could look like. So I really liked that they were going to take it head on, and that they were really interested in getting my input on what it would be like. So a lot of the conversations that I had with TK, and even how I navigate the conversation with Josie, was pulled from either things that I experienced personally or things that I know from like my other peers or things that I read that I really wanted to kind of put in the forefront.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was wondering that.
Yeah.
I was wondering how
real.
much they actually had conversation with you on it. That's beautiful.
So they ain't just write you something and hand it to you, like, do that.
Yeah, no, like, because I mean, it very well could have been that way, and I really like how open the writers and the producers on the show are to like authenticity.
Yeah.
Like, they I was talking, I was like, hey, y'all want me to come in? I can, like, give you some information just kind of about, you know, some things. They're like, yes, please. They like bought me some lunch. We sat down for like an hour and I just sort of talked to them about different things because, you know, if they don't have someone who's trans or like, of the experience in the writer's room, I like that the door is open, you know, for me to come in and like kind of give that input or like ask questions or at least guide them to some resources to sort of help them out. So I feel like that's what really gave the show or this episode kind of like the reality of it, because even though the situation for me being like a trans man in a relationship is like very specific, the fears and the navigating and all that stuff is universal. Everybody knows what that's like to not know if somebody's going to accept you for whatever. You know what I mean? So when you go on those first dates, you have all those feelings and you really want them to like you and you want to be your truest self, but then you also want to be your best self. And then how do you navigate both of those things? So instead of having my character just talk about it and try to explain it, I really like that they let the audience just walk in Paul's shoes through that situation so that they understand why, you know, this assumption that, you know, if you're trans and you're going to date somebody, you need to tell them like immediately and like this, that, and third. Like, you know, like, that's not necessarily the case. That's not always safe. And you never know what people are going to do with that information. So I was really glad that we were able to have that conversation like on the air so that people can kind of understand like it's not about deception. It's not about shame. It's not about any of those things. It's just literally about, are we cool? Are you cool? Okay, let me open up to you a little bit more as we get to know each other a little bit more on this date. And that's how we all do it on a date. It's not just
teach us how to date you.
My dating advice show is going to air after this show, immediately afterwards.
Teach us.
I mean, is that how it was for you in your relationship?
Yeah, like, you know, I think the dating apps and, you know, web-based stuff was helpful. I think it's helpful for this generation because you can just put it in the profile. And if people read the profile, they want to know what's going on. Because sometimes people want to skip over stuff and like, say what? He's like, you didn't read it? That's on
out there.
Right, that's on them, you know what I mean? So you kind of can, you know, ease the pressure of how you're going to have the disclosure conversation. But sometimes that doesn't necessarily happen. And like, you know, you might just meet somebody like, oh, I really want to make sure that you're cool and, you know, talk to you and just kind of, you know, see where you are. So, you know, for me, I think that's what ended up happening in my relationship with my wife. It was like we met, we worked together and it was great. And then it was like, all right, let's have this conversation. Let me see what you understand about this. What do you understand about that? And we just had to like work through it, you know, because it was new. It was a new concept to her, just like it was a new concept, you know, to me. So I was like, we're going to learn together on this right here.
Okay,
you know, but it helped out with that being open and vulnerable and having those clear communication, those clear conversations that I think, you know, I was able to model in this episode.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Because I ain't even gonna hold y'all up. I almost forgot Paul was trans.
Yes!
Because
Strategic.
you're listening all of the episode, okay?
No, for real. When Josie showed up with the brisket, Paul was acting real weird, and I'm like, what's wrong with him?
Why are you so awkward?
I said, why you so awkward?
And so then next thing I know, he, you know, lifting the weights, and the guy's like, why you ain't on Josie?
Right.
And then he like, well, you know, I can't really just, and I'm like, oh, dang.
And Don
I forgot,
Right.
you know? And then here we are with the bowling alley.
And I like that. I really appreciate it about Fox's approach or the writers team on the show approach to it, because I didn't want people to feel like, we're shoving this down his throat, because honestly, as somebody who is, you know, I've transitioned a long time ago, I just kind of lived my life. So it isn't something that I bring up unless it sort of comes up, unless I can like support somebody with it. You know, it's like anything that comes, like you don't just talk about, you know, your degree every day. You don't talk about things in your past unless it makes sense to the situation. And like, Paul's just a person. And if we keep saying trans person, then it's just going to other him for no reason.
Right.
So it's like, I really liked how, you know, they introduced it in the first episode. I think I alluded to it with that racist lady in the second episode. And it's like, all right, it ain't coming up.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
That's when I remember a little bit.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, like, when they came to you with the script, was that character, was Paul already written in the way he was?
Yeah, he was already written as trans, yes.
Okay.
And I was like, great, because I've always wanted to do like action-oriented roles. I'm a huge fan of the original 911, and like I love the Chicago shows and procedures and stuff like that, right? So I was like, if I could just get a guest spot on the OG show, I'd be happy. So to be able to get an audition for a series regular role for a specifically trans like firefighter, I was like, oh, this is for me.
It's like,
It's like the role was created for you.
No, it really was. Like, I have a like little journal that I keep, and I write my goals. And like I started like, don't lie to yourself. What do you really want? And I was like, I want a series regular role on a show that films in Los Angeles, and like all this stuff. And I wrote it out. And then, you know, I was playing a trans character with a great ensemble cast, like almost to the letter. I wrote that, and I booked the L Word, and I was very happy. I was like, this is great, this is everything. And I was like, but I still want to do. I want to go to work every day, and I want to be like, you know, I want to be action, I want to do this, and I love like these cop shows. I want something like that. So I changed the goal, and I wrote it like, I want to be on an action-oriented procedural, this, that. And That's
And then you
literally,
manifested it.
literally
Right, I'm
what
about to say, are you
happened.
telling us
Yeah.
that you manifest
I swear
all
I
of
can
this?
show you up on my phone. Like, really, that was my goal. I wrote it. You know,
I love
it's
it.
And your note
positive.
section on your phone?
I have a spreadsheet that I use because I'm kind of a dork.
I
I have
wasn't
a
coming for the note
spreadsheet,
section. I'm
but-
saying I write my goals in the note section.
So I had to get really
whole
big with it.
spreadsheet,
It's a whole
y'all. Oh my
spreadsheet,
God.
and this is my goal
Wow.
right
A whole
there.
Excel,
Read
you
number 2.
guys.
What does it say?
Number 2 says, be cast as a series regular in an ensemble action-oriented procedural TV show that keeps me working in LA. Increases my footprint.
Amen. Okay.
Yes.
All right, and then you got Paul Strickland.
Right.
Come on.
Okay. Yeah.
Come on.
Okay, well, since we're talking all things you now, since we've already transitioned.
Right.
First and foremost, we're from the same state because
Oh.
you were born in Ann Arbor, Michigan,
Yes,
right?
I
I'm from
was.
Detroit.
Come on, D.
No, I went to DSA around the corner
Okay,
from Cass.
that's cute.
We
It's cute.
still
It's cute.
we still the
That's
truth.
right. It's still
We're
cute.
still there.
Ah,
We
yeah,
still the
yeah,
truth.
yeah.
Okay, so I had watched this one interview you did, and you was like, you had told your wife, because y'all was living in New York, you told your wife, like, I'm gonna go to LA, see if I can get some work for a little bit.
Yes.
And then you just so happen to get booked on all these shows.
Yes.
So how is that? Y'all moving to LA now?
Yeah, well, I'm here. I'm like, baby.
You
baby.
left her.
No, I didn't leave it. Yo, they were like, how you doing? You guys, she works in a school. She can't just pick them and leave. You gotta think about the
Their
kids.
school's here?
But
Right.
was
She can
all-
bring the kids.
Listen, she brought like 30 kids from the Upper East Side. They would come looking for those children. So she's finishing her school year there, and then we're gonna make our way out west.
So how did you get into acting?
I always was a performer. Like, our family is, my mom has her sisters, and we all had kids from like 1982 to 89. One of them was having kids, so we were all raised together. And it's just a very story-oriented, like, they love humor, so it's like, come here, do the thing, do the dance, you know. So it's always like, just because, you know,
my people.
My
Go
My
ahead,
auntie
kids.
used to
Come-
give
come
us
in
money.
here.
Hip rolly,
Yeah.
get that money, get that money.
You got money for it? No, we would just come in and talk about, come do the push it dance. I'm like,
No, I
first
used
of all,
to
we
get
are
dollars
poor.
to dance.
Some dollars?
Some dollars.
Are y'all
They
adopted?
were encouraging.
Yeah.
Right. Some dollars.
I was just doing it for the laughs. I didn't know
That's off the
dollars was
record,
on the
okay?
table, okay? I known.
That is off the record now.
Strike that. But yeah, so that was always part of it. And then I would perform in the church plays. And then when I got to high school, I was doing track. I was on
Yes. What were you running?
I was throwing. I did
Oh,
some
shot
short
put.
sprints, but I
Okay,
threw
arms?
everything.
What's up?
Me too.
Come on, show us what you're working with.
Right there.
Welcome to the gun
Okay.
show.
Shot,
Shot, discus, javelin,
Oh, I did javelin. I did it.
Yeah.
Look at
And
that.
shot put. I was a heptathlete, so
Come on.
let's
She
get
did
it.
all of it. She
Come on.
worked
We
it.
got all things in common.
I had to cut it out when it came to distance running though. That's
Yeah,
why I
no,
couldn't do
very
the, I
hard.
couldn't
I
do
can't
the,
do
the
distance.
pentathlon. That's why I had to like
Short distance.
Passing
me.
I will
out.
pass
Okay.
out after
Anything over an
400.
8,
Right.
I was done.
No, the 400 got me. I was like, nah, we good.
Right.
I will pass out after 3 blocks.
I'm gonna need you to get to the corner
Right.
store and back.
Okay.
And not
You're
fall
right.
out. Okay.
You're right.
Corner store.
she
okay.
just had
to
the
walk
three
up the
blocks.
block.
Right.
But no, I did the. So I had to split my time because I was doing the boys football team in the fall and the girls track team in the spring, and there was no time to do like.
How was that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
what?
she's like, what?
You tripped her up now.
Like, how
You
did
tripped her up.
you-
You
what?
said,
We gotta
said,
explain
what-
that. You ain't
what?
gonna walk past that like you ain't saying it.
right.
How in Obama's internet? No.
Not what in the Obama's
Right.
internet.
I mean, you gotta bang it up. But I really,
That's a lot.
I wanted to play football. Like all my friends, my 5 best guy friends, they were playing the Pee Wee League football, and I wanted to do it. And I broke my leg right before the last year I could qualify. I played myself. I really did to myself. I spent a whole year convinced my mom to let me play, and she's no. And I hit her with like if it's the only reason you're not gonna let me play is because you think I'm a girl. You really want it? And she was like, okay. So she said yes.
So
like,
this was before
great.
the transition?
This was before. I was like young. I was like 12, and so she was like, okay, fine. So I was like, great. And then I broke my leg, and I mean, I was out for you. I had a wheelchair. I was like, it was
Oh
really
my
bad.
God.
Bad. And she told me not to go outside,
Right.
and I was tripping. So I missed the cutoff for Pee Wee League. So I just said, okay, I'll just play in high school. And she was like, what? You almost like broke your whole leg. You barely, are able to walk. And the doctor's like, well, with all the new bone growth, his leg is actually stronger than the other. She's like, why would you say that?
Why would you say that? Why are you telling me that?
Why you say it? So like, see, I'm good. So I thought it was gonna be a whole situation when I went to the tryouts for the high school team. And I'm like, when I get there, if they try to tell me no, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna do this. And I got friends that's already on the team, and I'm really good, like whatever. And I was just all prepared. And I got there like, I'm here for the football tryouts. And the coach was like, okay, the equipment's over there. Go ahead and do. I was like, oh.
You're like, okay, no fight.
I really think like the approach was like, well, football, you just try out. Football will weed you out. So we're not gonna stop you from like trying.
Right.
Like, you're gonna.
I mean, isn't that like how track it is? Like track, everybody wanted to do track,
everybody
and then it was like 2 weeks later, everybody gone.
That's
and
what
you're
it
like,
was.
where's
They couldn't
this
make the
person?
practice.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
He was like two a days, whatnot.
Right.
People just gone. But like I was like, I loved the sport. I was good at it, and like I was committed to it, and so I got to play like all 4 years. So it was great. Yeah, I'm in the history books in the state of Michigan. The first female to score a touchdown.
Yes,
that's
make
a little
those
tidbit.
goals.
Wow.
So I was like, so I did that, and then the track was going really well, and my track coach was not having it when it came to like, I'm about to go, do this play. He's like, no, you're not. We have regionals, and you have qualified for all the things. So I was like, okay, Mr. Westfield, I'll do it.
Not you qualify for all the things.
Yeah,
All the things.
Yes.
All the things.
Yeah.
We're qualifying for everything.
All of the things.
Yes,
Like,
you're just talented over
so
here.
I
We
was
just
like,
got a whole lot of talent.
So
We
that's
track,
what you gotta do.
we
Listen.
football, we acting.
You gotta follow, and that's what got the scholarship. So I
Yes.
was like, okay, if that's what's
So
gonna pay
tell
for the
us,
school.
what are some upcoming projects that you have going on?
Well, right now I'm working on Lone Star. That is taking up a lot of
Yes, I'm sure
time,
it is.
for
Sure
sure.
it
I was
is.
working on the L Word, and that was what I was doing like through the last 2 months up until the fall. So they got renewed for season 2. So we'll see what's going on with that, and then we'll keep working on this till we finish shooting, and then we'll see what's going on. And hopefully in between what I think is going to be another season of it, I can work on a film. So we got
that's
the
awesome.
auditions
Oh, you're
coming out.
amazing.
Yeah.
What kind of film?
I'm trying to do the action stuff. I got all this shape. I'm trying
Right,
to,
you got all the body.
Shoot,
Got all the
shoot.
body.
I was in there lifting them weights.
He said that was not fake.
No,
Right.
I was,
He was like, I was up in there.
I was in there.
In the
We
gym.
went to the I thought I was strong until we went to the firefighter training, and like they was just giving me the stuff. They're like, yeah, so you hold this, and I pick. I was like, oh. But it was so light to them. I was like, I thought I was strong. I was like, I need to go back to this. We had like 3 more weeks. I was like, I really need to hit it. So I really worked my functional training. It was
Yes.
great, and I feel like I got in pretty good shape. So I'm gonna try to keep it going. So somebody doing some
We
movies.
love it.
Exploit.
You're just so
Oh my
talented,
God.
so amazing.
So amazing.
Seriously, thank you so much for joining us
Yes.
tonight.
Can I ask you one more serious question?
Sure.
This is a serious question,
All right,
okay?
I'm ready.
Okay, so you mentioned that you don't bring up your transition unless you're helping somebody else with theirs. What does that look like?
How to help other people?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it depends. Like, if someone is questioning or if somebody's going through their own personal struggle, whether it has anything to do with their gender identity or not, and I feel like, hey, I know something about perseverance, or I know what it's like to try to listen to your own voice, or like, this is what I went through with my mom, so don't worry about it, or this is what it takes. Sometimes when you are trying to pursue your vision and everybody is telling you not to do it, so if that'll serve,
Push it through the
push
adversity.
it through. It's like, yeah, I'll definitely like use my story for that. And I worked at the LGBT Center in Manhattan for years, working with the youth program. And like a lot of people, what are you doing here? Like, you gay? I'm like, no. And they're like, what? And I was like, I'm trans. What? And so just being physically present for some people gave them just an idea of like, I could have a future as an adult, period. Like, a lot of young people, I think, contemplating suicide because they can't see a future version of themselves. So for me to just be in the space, alive, talking, eating Cheetos, and let them know, like, oh, okay, so
Like, this is real.
This
Have
is
you
real.
encountered
I
or
can
worked
have
with somebody
this.
who was contemplating suicide?
Repeatedly, yeah. And a lot, I mean, because when you feel like you don't see yourself,
Right.
like you can't see a future for yourself.
That's tough.
That's what they feel like, or just a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain in being denied who you are on a very level, and being kicked out of your home, or being hated by the people who you need to love you the most, or who you thought would love you the most,
Right.
or just not knowing that you have some place to go. There's a lot of pain that you carry around, and nobody else seems to understand that. So there's a lot of people who aren't in metropolitan areas where they can see other queer people, they can see other people who are different and who are thriving, or they're alone. And so that's another reason I felt like being on this show was so important, because it's on Fox. It goes into the heartland. It goes to
Yeah.
places.
I mean, that's
where-
true. I mean,
Speaking
we're so
of the
lucky to be
Yes,
here in LA.
yeah.
I mean,
Right,
we have
'cause it's
West
just an
Hollywood.
everyday
There's
thing.
everyone,
Right.
and it's not a big deal. Like, for us, it's like an everyday occurrence that we
Exactly.
are interacting with multiple, multitudes of people.
Right.
So it's like I guess we don't think
We
about
take
it
it for
like,
granted.
And then
yeah.
it doesn't matter what your quote unquote difference is. I mean, you got to think about the first time you saw somebody doing something like you. It was like this first time I seen a black journalist. When was the
Yeah.
first time you really seen like a representation of a future? So there's a lot of people who never see it. I didn't think it was impossible for you to keep acting, because it's like either I'm going to have to try to act and like people think that I'm female, so they're going to try to put me in these like female roles. Or as a trans person, they're like, well, you're trans, so you can't do any of these other roles. Nobody's going to see you as a romantic lead. Like that's a real like misconception or perception. Like, well, who's going to want to be with this guy, right? So here I am.
I'm glad they doing this. Lone Star. So
Me too.
Yes.
Like, what an amazing time it is right now.
Yeah.
Because we have Laverne Cox, we have Billy Porter. Like, there's so many people out here really representing who they are, like, how they come, and so I mean. It's perfect timing, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like
Everything
Hollywood is
perfect
doing?
timing.
Do you feel like Hollywood is doing a great job with opening the spectrum for the LGBTQ?
It's doing a better job for sure. I feel like in the last, at least 3 or 4 years, they've been listening a lot more, and they've been hearing, and they've been letting people who are of that experience tell their stories. So they're giving away, like Ryan Murphy's done a great job of like opening the doors for people who are queer, people who are of color, and like letting them tell their stories and be creative, and then hiring other people, like giving people jobs, so that they can they can move out of survival mode into thrive mode and be creative and like reach audiences in a different way, whether they are of the same experience or not. Because people responding to this show and people are responding to Pose who are not of the experience, but they just understand what it's like. Because
I love me some Pose.
Man,
I love me some Pose.
At the end of the day,
I
it's
love
like,
me some
right,
Pose.
it's
And the category is
I
love.
love how authentically they're now opening the doors.
Exactly.
That's one thing that I personally feel like in the last maybe 2 years is changing and shifting dramatically, because I feel like the door has been cracked, but it wasn't necessarily authentically stated. It was more like a check box.
Right.
And I say that oftentimes because, being in the industry and stuff and being a minority, sometimes it's just a checkbox. And it's like, okay, we got it. But the message and the true representation isn't fully there. So to know that they actually came to you, to know that they included your visions of like your experiences and different things of that nature in the episode, that's a beautiful thing.
That's
because
profound.
now
It really is.
Yeah.
they're
and then what's
actually
profound,
giving great representation.
is how people are responding to it. Like, like how you responded to watching the episode, and somebody who, didn't walk in that experience. It's like you see it and you're like, oh, you have a deeper level of understanding. When people have a deeper level of understanding and empathy, then it changes how they respond.
Yes.
They're going to, like, how can you legislate against, trans people existing, trans people being able to access healthcare and these things like that when you see what it's like, you know what I mean? When you see the truth of their experience.
Right, you can feel it.
You can
And
feel
it's all
it,
about
so
having
really
compassion
hard.
for people,
It's really hard to be, discompassionate.
And then have enough compassion to learn.
Right.
About
you
what's
gotta be
going
open
on,
to
yeah.
want to know what's
Right.
happening. You can't be closed off. You gotta want to know.
Yeah. Well, we're just kind of sneaking in there.
Right. we'll put it in your face either way.
We got, firefighter strippers, but then here's some trans inclusivity. Hey!
All right, well, that being said, we have had such an amazing episode. Before we get ready to conclude, we have one last aspect of the show that we have not done, and that is our special segment. We have not done that. We just need to highlight that real quick of which call we thought was the best call from the episode. So, 911, what's your emergency?
I would have to say that whole like toxic man faint, having a seizure, having some like super sensitive skin, something, and then just all of it. The medicine he was on. So and then
Come to find out it was Michelle's fault. She, was giving him.
Michelle.
Look now.
I know it was.
How you gonna throw Michelle under the ambulance?
She said it. She threw
threw
herself under the
Michelle under the ambulance.
No,
I
it
love
was
it.
her own fault.
He was
No.
on some meds. She plugged him with some other stuff. The
Right.
fumes didn't go together, and now everybody's sick.
Everybody
true.
goes.
She did say that. She did.
did say
He
it.
basically exploded.
He did. And he almost killed everybody.
He really did.
That was a mess.
He really did.
That was a mess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indirectly. Sorry, Michelle. Throw you underneath the bus like
My
that.
bad, yeah.
Now she on bed rest.
Right.
All right, y'all. Well, that concludes our episode of Studs, episode 5 of 911 Lone Star with our special guest, Brian Michael Smith. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
having
joining
me.
us.
Yes.
It has been a pleasure. You are our first guest for
Hey.
911 Lone Star. We hope to have minty more of the
All
cast
right.
and production. Thank you again for coming out, supporting us, having conversation with us, and we hope to have many more conversations.
Thank you.
So that concludes it. I'm Lauren B. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Lauren B. Mosely. That's Mosley at Gmail, or Mosley, not at gmail.com. We're not emailing, but that's my Instagram and Twitter. Portia, where can they find you?
And I'm Portia Carter. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can find me at all things Portia Carter.
Awesome. Do you want to give a shout
Yeah,
out?
go ahead and
Listen,
plug yourself.
I'm Brian Michael Smith. You can find me on Instagram at @the_Brian Michael, or on Twitter at the Brian Michael.
Perfect. Perfect. And you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Ebone Chatman 12.
All right, y'all. Good night. Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday.
That's right.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.